there, lovelies. Today we're making chiffon cake recipe, and if you want to learn how to do that, just keep on watching.
Hey there lovelies, welcome back to my channel. Today we will be making a customizable chiffon cake recipe. Without further ado, let's get on with the ingredients and the recipe. For this recipe, you will need 6 large eggs, also 375 grams of superfine sugar, but if you have none, you can use white granulated sugar instead. 225 grams of cake flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and a teaspoon of baking soda. 112 grams of vegetable oil for added moisture, and 112 grams of full fat milk, and also flavorings that you desire. If you haven't caught that up, you can also read the full recipe in the description box below. So we're going to start separating our egg yolks from our egg whites. You can use your clean hands or you can use the eggshells, transferring the yolk back and forth in the shells and letting the egg whites fall off to the bowl. Make sure to be really careful that you don't get any yolk into your egg whites, otherwise you can't whip it up into a meringue, so you will have to start all over again. So just keep going until you are done with all of your eggs. At this stage, let's set the egg whites aside and we will start working with our egg yolks. To the egg yolks, add half the quantity of your sugar since the other half will be used for the egg whites later. You can also add in your chosen flavoring at this point. I'm using 3 teaspoons of vanilla extract since it is the most basic and common flavoring. You can start experimenting with other extracts if you already feel comfortable with the recipe. This version is just the safest and I'm pretty sure it's foolproof if you just follow the recipe. Once added, start creaming the eggs and sugar or basically mixing it with a whisk until it becomes paler in color. It will take about 3 minutes by hand or just a minute if you use a hand mixer. So now add in your vegetable oil into the mix, and once you do so, continue whisking for about a minute. Now that all of our fats and sugars are completely combined, we can now start alternating our dry and wet ingredients. Basically, we want to start with adding the dry ingredients, namely the flour, baking soda, and baking powder. When adding the dry ingredients, it is optimal that you sift it into the bowl so that there will be no lumps, and as an added bonus, it will make your cake a lot lighter in texture. So fold gently into the batter, and once it's incorporated, you can then start adding in the wet ingredient, which is the milk in this case. And then fold gently so that we don't lose all that lovely air. And finally, end with the dry ingredients and fold it in gently again. So what we're doing basically is that we're alternating the ingredients so that there will be no possibility or tendency that your batter could be lumpy, because adding things all at once will create a higher risk of having a lumpy batter. So now that that's all settled, let's move on to the most important part of this process of the chiffon cake birth. We have to make the meringue. So the meringue is what's gonna be the main leavener of our cake, meaning it'll give us that light, fluffy, and spongy texture, and it also gives height to the cake. Without making the meringue, you can't really call this cake a chiffon cake recipe, so you better listen up good. So into your egg whites, add a pinch of salt, but if you have cream of tartar on hand, then that is much better. Please use that. That's gonna help stabilize our egg whites. So mix your egg whites with the hand mixer for about a minute or less, just until it reaches a frothy texture and the bubbles are really small. That's when you can add in your sugar gradually. And by gradually, I mean about a tablespoon or so. That'll be good. So the reason why we're adding the sugar gradually is that we want to slowly strengthen the protein structure of the egg whites. And when we do that, it enables the meringue to capture more air, thus resulting to a lighter and fluffier cake. Once your sugar is all added in, then you can continue whisking the meringue for about a minute or two, but don't go past that because we don't want to over whip our egg whites even if we put cream of tartar in it. We just want to make sure that the meringue is ready for folding. So one way to check is to lift out your beaters and then the meringue should hold a stiff peak. Or some people say you could hold the bowl over your head and the meringue does not fall over, then it means it's ready. But I wouldn't really recommend that. What if the egg whites aren't ready and then it'll fall over your head, you get messy and waste some egg whites? No thank you. Now all that's left to do is to fold in the meringue into your cake batter. Make sure to do this really gently and slowly so that you don't lose all the air of your meringue. It just looks like I'm doing it a bit harsh just because I sped up the video. In the end, it should look a little bit like this, smooth, velvety, and creamy consistency. Now all that's left to do is to get pouring. So pour your batter into a tube pan. Don't grease it because the grease will inhibit the growth of the cake. So the batter needs something to cling onto, so you don't want to grease it. And also the tube in the middle is gonna help make the cake rise higher. Bake it in a preheated oven at 175 degrees Celsius for about 20 to 25 minutes or until a skewer comes out clean when inserted into the cake. Once the chiffon cake is baked, make sure to turn it upside down so that you don't deflate the cake. If you don't do this step, the cake might sink. After 10 minutes of cooling in the pan, you can remove the tin and you can serve that delicious, light and fluffy chiffon cake. And as I said, this is customizable. You can use this with any other fillings or change the flavor profile. It's up to you. Let your creative juices flow. And that's it, my lovelies, for our chiffon cake recipe today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, give this a thumbs up. And if you're gonna make this cake, please take a picture, post it on Instagram, and tag me at Macu Baker. Subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any more updates, and I hope to see you soon in my next video. Stay safe and happy baking. Love ya, bye!